There once lived a princess named Juliana. She was the daughter of a powerful king, known far and wide for his wealth and strength. But more than anything, Juliana was famous for her beauty. Her skin glowed like the morning sun, her eyes sparkled like the stars, and her hair flowed like a river of gold. Every young man in the kingdom dreamed of marrying her. But Juliana had one problem. She was arrogant. She rejected every suitor who came for her hand. "You are not handsome enough," she would say, laughing at them. "Look at your big nose. Look at your dirty clothes. Do you think a goddess like me will marry a village champion like you?" She never respected the elders. When she walked past them in the market, she wouldn't greet them. If they called her, she would wave her hand and say, "Go and talk to your mates. I am too important for small people like you." Even the young girls in the village feared her sharp tongue. "Look at all of you," she would say, pointing at them. "So poor, while I am the most beautiful. The rest of you look like the backside of a goat." The only person who stayed close to her was her maid, a humble girl named Agnes. Agnes was loyal, even though Juliana treated her like a servant and often shouted at her. But despite her beauty and arrogance, Juliana did something strange. She sold goats. She would dress in her finest clothes and sit in the marketplace selling the finest goats in the kingdom. Many said she only did it because she enjoyed being admired by the men who passed by. One day, a powerful king named King Obadiah, from a neighboring land, came to her father's kingdom. He was strong, feared by many, and had conquered many villages. He had heard of Juliana's beauty and wanted her as his wife. He sent messengers to ask for her hand, but Juliana laughed when she heard his name. "King Obadiah?" she scoffed. "Is he even handsome? I have heard he is big and ugly. Tell him I am not interested in marrying a beast." The messengers returned to their king, ashamed and embarrassed. But King Obadiah did not forget the insult. He decided to test Juliana in another way. He disguised himself as a rich traveler and went to the marketplace where she sold her goats. "Sell me your best goat," he said, smiling. Juliana, unaware of who he was, smiled back. "Only the finest for, a rich man like you," she said, and handed him a fat, healthy goat. Obadiah took the goat, but did not pay. "Where is my money?" Juliana asked, frowning. "Come to my palace and collect it," he replied. Juliana was angry. "What nonsense is this? Do I look like a beggar? Give me my money now." But Obadiah only laughed and walked away. Juliana stormed into the palace, her face twisted in anger. She walked straight to her father, who sat alone on his grand throne. Without greeting him, she threw her shawl to the ground and crossed her arms. Her voice was sharp as she spoke. "Father, you will not believe what happened today. A man came to my stall. He looked rich and powerful. He wore fine clothes, and his voice was deep and commanding. He walked with confidence, like someone who was used to being obeyed. He had strong features, a scar above his left eye, and his hands were rough, like a warrior. He bought a goat from me, but when I asked for my money, he refused to pay. Instead, he told me to come to his palace if I wanted my payment. Can you imagine such arrogance? Who does he think he is? He has no idea who I am." King Aaron's expression changed. He sat up straight, his eyes darkening with realization. His voice was deep and serious. "That must be King Obadiah. He is a powerful and dangerous man. He is not someone you should challenge. Many have fallen because of him. His heart is as hard as stone, and his hands are stained with the blood of those who dared to cross him. Juliana, forget about this money. I will give you the money for the goat. Let this matter rest." Juliana frowned, her arms tightening around her chest. "Forget it? Never, father. He insulted me. Do you know how many people were there? They saw him take my goat without paying. They saw him walk away like a... I was nothing. They will laugh behind my back. They will whisper that Princess Juliana is weak. I refuse to let that happen. I must go tomorrow. He must give me my money." King Aaron's face turned stern. His voice was cold, filled with warning. "Juliana, you are letting your pride control you. This is not just about money. Obadiah does not respect anyone. If you go to him, you may not return the same. I am telling you to let it go. I will give you the money." Juliana shook her head, her face filled with stubbornness. "No, father. This is not about money anymore. This is about respect. That man will regret ever thinking he could cheat me. I am Princess Juliana. I bow to no one." King Aaron sighed deeply. He had always known his daughter was proud, but this time he feared her pride would lead her to destruction. He looked at her for a long moment before speaking again. "My daughter, I have always warned you that pride is dangerous. Your beauty is a gift, but it will not protect you from every battle. The world is bigger than you. There are men who will not care about your beauty, your status, or your words. There are men who take what they want without fear. Obadiah is one of those men. I am warning you as your father. Do not go." Juliana lifted her chin, her eyes flashing with determination. "I have made up my mind. No one will stop me. Tomorrow I will go to his palace, and I will make him pay." King Aaron watched her walk away, his heart heavy with worry. The next morning, Juliana got ready. She was determined. Her mind was set on getting her money from Obadiah. Nothing could stop her. Not her father's warning, not her maid's fear, not even the stories of Obadiah's cruelty. She had never backed down from anything in her life, and she was not about to start now. She walked out of her chambers and found Agnes waiting for her near the horses. The young maid's face was full of worry, but Juliana ignored it. Without a word, she climbed onto her horse, holding the reins tightly. "Let us go," she commanded. Agnes hesitated before mounting her own horse. Her heart was heavy with fear, but she had no choice but to follow her mistress. The guards opened the palace gates, and the two rode out, their horses kicking up dust as they galloped down the road. The sun was bright. The air was thick with the smell of dry earth. The road stretched long and winding, leading them toward Obadiah's palace. They rode past villagers who stared in surprise. Everyone had heard what happened the day before. Whispers followed them as they passed. "Where is the princess going? She is riding toward danger. Does she not know who Obadiah is?" But Juliana paid no attention to them. Her mind was focused only on her goal. As they rode, Agnes gathered her courage and spoke. "My princess, please let us go back. Your father warned you. This man is not safe. He is known for his wickedness. He already refused to pay you once. What if he does something worse this time?" Juliana scoffed. Agnes stopped talking. "I am not afraid of Obadiah. I will take what belongs to me." Agnes sighed but said no more. The road stretched on, the dust rising around them as their horses galloped forward. When they finally arrived at Obadiah's palace, the massive gates opened without hesitation. The guards let them in, silent and watching. The palace was grand, larger than Juliana had expected. Servants moved about quickly, their eyes lowered. The air smelled of wealth and power. Juliana rode straight into the courtyard, where Obadiah sat on a high chair, watching her with an amused expression. His long robe spread around him, and his strong hands rested on the arms of the chair. He looked at her as if he had been expecting her. "You have come for your money," he said, his deep voice steady. "Yes, and I will not leave until I get it," Juliana replied without fear. Obadiah smiled slightly, then clapped his hands. At once, 2 servants stepped forward, each carrying a large sack. They placed it on the ground before Juliana, then opened it. Gold coins spilled out, shining brightly in the sunlight. More gold than Juliana had ever seen in one place. Her anger melted instantly. The sight of the money made her heart race. She had come to demand payment, but now she was speechless. Obadiah leaned forward, his eyes locked on hers. "Marry me, and you will have more than this, more than you ever dreamed of." Juliana did not hesitate. Right there, without thinking twice, she answered, "I accept." Obadiah chuckled, pleased. The gold was placed in Juliana's hands, and she carried it happily as she and Agnes mounted their horses again. As they rode back, the heavy sack of gold secured behind Juliana, Agnes could not hold back her curiosity. She turned to her mistress, her voice careful. "My princess, this man already has 3 wives. Why did you accept to marry him?" Juliana turned sharply, her face filled with irritation. "How dare you speak to me like that, you daughter of a nobody? Who do you think you are to question my decisions? I love money. That man is so wealthy, I never knew until now. I do not care if he has 20 wives or if he is ugly. That is none of my business. What matters is the wealth I will have as his wife. So shut up and never interfere in my affairs, never in your life, or you will be fired and punished." Agnes lowered her head, swallowing her words. She knew better than to argue with Juliana. The horses galloped forward, the sound of hooves hitting the ground echoing in the quiet afternoon. Juliana felt nothing but excitement. She had always believed she deserved the best, and now she was finally getting it. She smiled to herself. Soon, she would be the wife of one of the richest kings. Soon, she would have more wealth than anyone in the kingdom. Nothing else mattered. When Juliana arrived at the palace, she wasted no time. She went straight to her father's chambers, her heart still racing with excitement. She could already see herself living in a palace larger than her father's, dressed in the finest silks, wearing the most expensive jewels. The thought of it made her smile as she stepped into the room. King Aaron was seated alone, his expression calm as he looked up at her. But the moment he saw the satisfied look on her face, he knew something was wrong. "Where have you been, Juliana?" His voice was deep and firm. Juliana lifted her chin, her confidence unshaken. "I went to Obadiah's palace, father. He paid me my money, not just that, but he offered me something greater. He asked me to be his wife, and I accepted." The room fell silent for a long moment. King Aaron just stared at her as if he had not heard her correctly. Then slowly his expression changed. "You did what?" His voice was low, but it carried the weight of a coming storm. "I accepted to marry Obadiah," Juliana repeated. "Not because I love him, but because he is rich. He is more powerful than I imagined. He has more gold than I have ever seen. I will live a life of luxury, and I will never lack anything." The king's face turned red with anger. "Have you lost your mind, Juliana? How can you choose to marry a man who is way older than you? Do you even know what you are doing? Obadiah is not a man to be trusted. He is a wicked ruler, feared by his own people. He has 3 wives already. Do you think you will be anything more than another possession to him?" Juliana rolled her eyes, unimpressed by her father's words. "Father, I do not care about his age. I do not care how many wives he has. I do not care about his reputation. None of that matters to me. What matters is that he is rich. He can give me the life I deserve, a life of gold, power, and endless comfort. I will no longer be just a princess. I will be the queen of one of the wealthiest kingdoms. No woman will stand above me." King Aaron stood up, his body shaking with fury. He had never felt so disappointed in his daughter. "You are blinded by greed. I have given you everything, Juliana. You have lived in wealth. You have never known suffering, yet you are willing to sell yourself for more riches. Is your pride so great that you are willing to marry a man you do not love? Just because of his gold?" Juliana smirked, crossing her arms. "Love does not put food on the table. Love does not build grand palaces. Love does not buy the finest clothes or the rarest jewels. I do not need love, Father. I need security. I need wealth, and Obadiah will give me that." The king let out a deep breath, shaking his head in disbelief. He looked at his daughter, his heart filled with sorrow. "You are making a terrible mistake, Juliana. You do not understand the kind of man you are dealing with. Obadiah does not give without taking something in return. You think you are gaining everything, but you are walking into a life of misery." Juliana lifted her chin, her face full of pride. "Misery is for the poor. I will be too rich to be miserable. I will have gold, fine clothes, servants to obey me, and a palace bigger than this one. I will have everything I have ever wanted." The king's anger turned into frustration. He looked at his daughter and knew there was nothing he could say to change her mind. She was too stubborn, too blinded by greed to listen to reason, no matter how much he warned her. She would not understand until it was too late. "Then go," he finally said, his voice heavy with disappointment. "Go and marry Obadiah, but do not come back to me when you realize that gold cannot buy happiness. When you suffer, when you regret. Do not expect me to save you. You have made your choice. Now live with it." Juliana smiled, unbothered by his words. "I will not regret it, Father. You will see soon. You will hear of my greatness, and you will be proud. I will be the most powerful queen. I will have more than any woman in this land. Everyone will envy me." With that, she turned and walked away, her head held high. She did not look back. In her mind, she had already stepped into a world of wealth and luxury. She was already picturing herself seated on a golden throne, covered in the finest jewels, with servants bowing before her. The king sat back down, his heart heavy with sorrow. He knew that his daughter had made the worst decision of her life. He had tried to stop her, but her greed was greater than his wisdom. He could only wait and watch as she walked straight into her own destruction. Juliana's wedding to King Obadiah was grand. The palace was filled with music, food, and dancing. Servants ran up and down, making sure everything was perfect. The whole kingdom gathered to witness the union. Juliana sat like a queen, her face full of pride. She looked at the gold on her wrists, the fine clothes she now wore, and smiled to herself. She had finally arrived. But not everyone was happy about her presence in the palace. King Obadiah's other wives stood in a corner watching her closely. Their faces were sour, their hearts were filled with jealousy. For years, they had been the king's favorites. They had enjoyed his wealth and attention. Now, in just 2 days, a new wife had come and stolen the spotlight. "Look at her," one of the wives whispered, "walking around as if she owns the palace." "The king spends all his time with her," another added. "He gives her the finest gifts. What about us? We were here before her. This girl must be taught a lesson." "Miriam," the second wife said, her eyes flashing with anger. "She thinks she is better than us. We must put her in her place before it is too late." That night, the wives gathered in one of the chambers, their voices low as they whispered their plans. They would not allow Juliana to take what was theirs. They would make her suffer. The next morning, Juliana sat in the courtyard, enjoying a bowl of sweet fruits. Servants stood around her, fanning her gently as she admired herself in a polished bronze mirror. She smiled, touching the gold necklace around her neck. Life was sweet. She had made the right choice, but her peace was short-lived. Miriam, the second wife, walked up to her, her face filled with anger. She stood tall, her hands on her hips, looking down at Juliana with a smirk. "So you think you are special?" Miriam said, her voice sharp. "You think because the king likes you today you are above us?" Juliana slowly lowered her mirror and looked at Miriam. She took her time chewing the fruit in her mouth before speaking. "Are you talking to me?" Juliana asked, her tone lazy, as if she had no time for nonsense. Miriam's face darkened. Yes, I am talking to you. You are new here, yet you act like you own this place. You do not respect those who came before you. Let me tell you something, girl. We were here long before you, and we will be here long after you. You are nothing but a passing shadow." Juliana laughed, shaking her head. "Oh, Miriam, what a shame." She stood up slowly, adjusting her fine robes. "It is not my fault that the king finds me more delightful than the rest of you." The other wives gasped. The servants looked at each other in shock. No one had ever spoken to Miriam like that before. Miriam's face turned red with anger. "You little—" Juliana held up a hand. "Hush, old woman. If you're not happy, you can go and hang yourself on a transformer. Nobody is forcing you to stay here." Miriam's eyes widened in shock. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. She had never been so insulted in her life. Juliana smiled sweetly. "Next time, before you come to challenge me, think twice. I am the king's favorite now. You and your little gossiping friends can cry all you want, but nothing will change that." Miriam clenched her fists. Her whole body shook with rage. She wanted to slap Juliana right there, but she knew the king would not take it lightly. Instead, she turned and stormed off, her heart burning with hatred. The other wives watched in silence. Juliana had made her position clear. She was not just another wife. She was the queen in the making. But as Juliana sat back down, a servant girl in the corner shook her head. Trouble was coming. The other wives would not let this go. The first wife, Esther, could no longer hold back her frustration. She had been patient, watching as Juliana walked around the palace like she owned it. But today, she had had enough. She stormed into the king's private chamber, her face filled with anger. King Obadiah was seated on a luxurious couch, sipping wine and looking pleased with himself. Esther stood before him. "My king, we need to talk." Obadiah barely looked up. "Talk about what, Esther?" "If it is about Juliana, then save your breath." Esther's lips tightened. "It is about Juliana, my king. Ever since she came into this palace, you have forgotten all about us. You no longer look at me. You no longer visit Naomi or Miriam. You treat us like we are invisible. We were your wives before she came, but now it is as if we do not exist." King Obadiah finally looked up. His eyes were cold, his expression full of amusement. "Are you blind, Esther? Can you not see Juliana is young and more beautiful than all of you put together? Do you expect me to leave her and come to old boring wives like you?" Esther's face burned with shame and anger, but she refused to back down. "My king, have we not been loyal? Have we not served you faithfully for years? We have stood by you, yet you cast us aside like we are nothing." The king chuckled, shaking his head. "Loyalty does not give me what I need. I married the three of you. But tell me, Esther, where are my children? Have you given me an heir to the throne? Has Naomi or Miriam? No, you have not. You have all been in this palace for years, eating my food, wearing my gold. But what have you given me in return? Nothing." Esther's heart pounded. She had never heard the king speak this way before. She had always known he was a proud man, but today he was being cruel. King Obadiah leaned back, smiling to himself. "Juliana is different. She is young, strong, and full of life. Soon she will give me 2 sons at once, and my kingdom will be secure. What have you done that makes you think you deserve my attention? Tell me, Esther, what have you done?" Esther clenched her fists. "We have been your wives. We have been faithful." The king laughed, a deep mocking sound. "Faithful? And what has your faithfulness given me? You all are old crones, occupying space in my palace. Let me tell you something. If any of you cannot stand Juliana, you are free to leave. Go to your father's houses. I will not stop you." Esther felt like a sharp knife had been driven into her heart. She had expected the king to be angry, but she had not expected him to dismiss her so easily. She had shared his bed, been by his side in his moments of triumph, and now she was nothing to him. She took a deep breath, forcing herself to stay calm. "My king, you are making a mistake. You think Juliana loves you, but she does not. She loves your gold. She loves the wealth and power you give her, not you as a man. One day you will see it." The king's eyes darkened. He did not like to be challenged. "You dare speak to me like this, Esther? You dare question my decisions?" Esther lowered her gaze. "Forgive me, my king, but I have spoken the truth." The king waved his hand dismissively. "Get out of my sight! Go and cry with your fellow old wives. I have no time for foolish complaints." Esther turned and walked away, her heart burning with anger and humiliation. She knew now that there was no hope for her in the king's heart. He had made up his mind. Juliana had him wrapped around her little finger. As she walked back to her chamber, she passed by Naomi and Miriam, who were waiting anxiously. "What did he say?" Miriam asked, her eyes filled with hope. Esther stopped, her face hard. "He said we are old crones. He said we are useless to him because we have not given him an heir. He said if we do not like Juliana, we should go back to our father's houses." Naomi gasped, placing a hand on her chest. "He said that?" Esther nodded. "Yes. He does not care about us anymore. He only sees Juliana." Miriam's face turned red with rage. "That girl will not rest in this palace. She has turned our husband against us. We will make sure she regrets ever stepping into this palace." The 3 women looked at each other. Their jealousy had now turned into hatred. They were no longer just angry wives. They were enemies. planning their next move. Juliana might have won the king's heart, but she had made 3 dangerous enemies, and in the palace, enemies never slept. Not long after the heated argument between the king and his wives, a new guard arrived at the palace. His name was Daniel. He was young, strong, and well-built, the kind of man that made women stop and stare. His muscles rippled with every movement, and his deep voice carried authority. He was unlike the older guards, who were either too stiff or too serious. Daniel moved with confidence. His eyes were sharp. His presence was commanding. The first time Juliana saw him, something inside her stirred. She had always liked powerful men, men with strength and charm, and Daniel had both. She watched him from her window as he trained in the courtyard, his bare chest glistening with sweat under the morning sun. He looked like a warrior, a man who could take control. Juliana smiled to herself. From that day on, she found reasons to walk around the courtyard more often. She would ask the servants to fetch things for her, just so she could pass by where Daniel stood. Sometimes, she would drop something and wait to see if he would pick it up for her. And when he did, she would let her fingers brush against his, just for a second. Just enough to send a message. Daniel noticed, and soon he began looking back at her. One evening, as she walked through the quiet corridors of the palace, she heard footsteps behind her. She turned and found Daniel standing there, his eyes locked on hers. "My queen," he said, his voice low. "Do you need something?" Juliana smiled, stepping closer. "I need many things, Daniel, but I wonder if you have the courage to give them to me." That night, she led him into her chambers, and from that night on, Daniel became more than just a guard. Their meetings were secret, hidden in the shadows of the palace, in the king's absence. Juliana found herself lost in Daniel's arms, enjoying the kind of passion she had never felt before. Unlike King Obadiah, who was old and rough, Daniel was young, strong, and knew how to make her feel alive. Juliana thought she could continue her secret affair without consequences, but just a month later she missed her cycle. She was pregnant. Her heart leapt with excitement. "My king," she said sweetly, "I bring you great news." King Obadiah, who had been drinking his palm wine, looked at her lazily. "What is it, my love?" Juliana placed a hand on her stomach and smiled. "You will soon be a father." The cup fell from the king's hand. He sat up straight, his eyes wide. "What did you say?" "I am carrying your child," Juliana said proudly. "Your heir, the future king." Obadiah laughed loudly, full of joy. "The gods have smiled upon me. You have made me the happiest man alive." The next morning, the entire palace was gathered. The drums were beaten and the servants stood in rows as the king made the announcement. "My people, today is a great day. After years of waiting, the gods have answered my prayers. My beloved Juliana is pregnant with my heir. She is now the queen mother, the most important woman in this palace. From today onward, she must be obeyed and worshipped. No one will dare to disrespect her, or they will face my wrath." Juliana stood beside him, dressed in the finest silk, her hands resting on her stomach, her smile wide. The other wives stood in a corner, their faces pale with shock. They could not believe what they were hearing. Miriam clenched her fists. "This cannot be happening." Naomi shook her head. "How is this possible? We have been here for years, yet none of us has ever conceived. And now she is the one to bear the king's first child?" Esther felt a deep pain in her chest. "Does this mean we will forever be beneath her?" The king's words rang in their ears. "Obey and worship Juliana." Miriam's eyes burned with fury. "No, this cannot happen. We must do something. We cannot let her take everything from us." The three wives sat in Esther's chamber, their faces filled with anger and frustration. The news of Juliana's pregnancy had shaken them to their core. They could not understand how the woman who had arrived only a few months ago had already conceived, while they, who had been married to the king for years, remained childless. It made no sense. Miriam paced up and down, her face dark with suspicion. "Something is not right. I can feel it in my bones." Naomi nodded. "The gods are not blind. They would not allow this kind of injustice to happen. How can we, the first wives of the king, be childless? Yet this arrogant girl carries the first heir." Esther, who had been silent, finally spoke. "There is only one way to find out the truth. We must go to the native doctor. He alone can tell us what is really happening." Without wasting time, the three wives wrapped themselves in dark cloaks and sneaked out of the palace under the cover of night. They moved swiftly through the village, their footsteps light against the sandy ground. When they reached the hut of the great native doctor, they knocked 3 times. A deep voice answered from inside. "Enter." They stepped inside, their hearts pounding. The native doctor sat on a mat, surrounded by strange objects, cowrie shells, bones, and a fire that burned without wood. His eyes were sharp, piercing through them as if he already knew why they had come. "Speak," he said, his voice deep and mysterious. Esther stepped forward. "Great One, we seek answers. Juliana, our husband's newest wife, is pregnant. We have been in this palace for years, yet none of us have conceived. How is this possible?"